Winning Blueprint presents.
In the Lab Room. Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills, live follow-up. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. We're talking Buffalo Bills football today. And this was a team that went 6-10 in 2012, and can't really say that I was surprised. Many people had high expectations for this Bills team after coming off of a season where they started 5-2 a year ago, beat the Patriots early on in the season, and really looked like a team that was poised to start to make moves in the AFC East. I was never sold because in this league, I know you get tired of me saying it, but I'm going to continue to say it because I feel like it's something that needs to be said often. If you don't have a quarterback in this league, you don't win. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, in my estimation, is a solid backup in this league. No more, no less. He's a solid quarterback that if your starter goes down for a 4-week period, he has no problem coming in, filling in, and going 3-1, going 2-2, and really keeping the boat and the ship afloat until your starter can get back into the fold. But he is no one's starter in the National Football League. You put too much on his shoulders, you ask him to chuck it 40 times, I'm guaranteeing you at least 2 interceptions. And that's the problem with Ryan Fitzpatrick is the inconsistency. 1 week, he's 16 of 22 for 185 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception, and which means the Bills didn't ask a lot out of him, and he did exactly what he needed to do to help the team win, or at least stay in the ball game. The next week, or the next 2 weeks, or the next 3 weeks, he's 13 of 27 for 119 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. Or he's 17 of 27 for 217 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and the Bills lose. Oh yeah, and by the way, he had a fumble in that game as well. You can't have that kind of sporadic play from your quarterback. That's what you get from Ryan Fitzpatrick on a week in, week out basis. They need a new quarterback. But the Bills, it's going to be a new chapter starting in 2013. They got a new head coach out with Chan Gailey, which I thought was a long time coming. Again, another one of these hires that I wasn't in love with the first time it was announced. Same as in Jacksonville, same here. I didn't love the Jacksonville hire of Mike Mularkey. I didn't love the Bills hire of Chan Gailey. You're going with retreads that never wowed you in the first place. It's one thing if a guy is fired after having a 5-year run at a location. 2 of those 5 years were really successful, and the other 3 were duds. And you can say there's potential for this guy as a head coach. Both of these coaches stunk their first times around as head coaches and really never gave you an indication that, hey, this guy is going to make a fabulous head coach if he just gets another opportunity. And so I thought that Chan Gailey, his personality is so bland. He's so laid back. His demeanor is one that lends itself to having players speak out and get away with more than they should. Like a Stevie Johnson calling him out and telling him that he's not a good play caller and that Ryan Fitzpatrick should be calling the plays. That shouldn't be happening in your locker room if you're a head coach. You shouldn't have players defying you in the media. That lets me know that you don't have a good control and a good grasp of your locker room. And guys aren't afraid of your wrath, and they should be. They shouldn't be talking freely to the media and feeling like there's not a consequence for their actions. And I think that's the type of coach that Chan Gailey is. I think that from an offensive standpoint, he doesn't have a problem drawing up X's and O's, but I don't think he's a great head coach. I don't think he's a good head coach. I don't think he's head coaching material. Just think he's a coordinator. And that's okay. Some guys in the league are better suited as coordinators, not head coaches. Everyone can't juggle and multitask this thing known as being an NFL head coach. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. You can't just focus in on the offense. You just can't focus in on the defense. You need to be able to pay attention to every minute detail. Defense, offense, special teams. You need to know what your coaches are up to. You need to know what the players are up to. You need to know what the coaches are thinking is going to be a good idea for the game plan this week. You need to know what's going on special teams. What's the pulse of your special teams? Are we struggling in the return game? Are we struggling with a kickoff return specialist? As a coach, you need to be able to have a pulse of your team. And some guys just aren't really good at that. And I thought that Chan Gailey isn't really adept at that. And so now they have a new coach, Doug Marrone from Syracuse. And he's been in the league as a player. He's been in the league as an offensive coordinator, as a coach in different spots. And so he's not unfamiliar with the NFL game. But he came from Syracuse. He was right in their backyard, right up the street in New York, in Syracuse. And so they know a little bit about Doug Marrone, and they like what they saw and him turning that program around. And now they're going to give him a chance to run the show at Orchard Park for this Buffalo Bills franchise. I can't say that I'm in love with the move, but I'm not against it like I was Chan Gailey or like I was the Mike Mularkey move. I'm not against it. I'm more so anxious to see what's going to occur. So I'm going to allow my glass to be half full here. It's not half empty. I'm an optimistic guy. I'm an optimistic person. And so I'm not going to be a pessimist here. I'm going to give him a chance to see what he can do in the National Football League. I'm always weary of college coaches, however, because the college game is unlike the NFL game. The speed of the NFL game is different. The level and caliber of athlete is different. And the schemes are so much more complex in the National Football League. And everyone's good. There's no Appalachian State. There's no Western Michigan or Central Michigan to beat up on. Everyone's good. Now, there's some bad teams in the league, but a bad team in the NFL isn't the same as a bad team in college. And so I'm always wary of college coaches when they come into the league. We've seen the best of them come to the NFL and fail in the NFL. And so I always reserve judgment on college coaches. I give them a chance, but I'm always sort of hesitant to give them the type of respect that I do a guy that's been coaching in the NFL for 10, 12, 8 years as a coordinator, as a quality control assistant, as a defensive line coach, as an offensive line coach, as a special teams coach. I'm always more willing to cut them slack than I am a college coach. So we'll see. We will see what Doug Marrone brings to the table in Buffalo. So let's get down to some Buffalo Bills business, shall we? Okay, let's talk about this 2012 season for the Bills. They were 6-10, and a large part of that reason why they were 6-10, quarterback position. They need a new quarterback. It's no secret how I feel about Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't think he's a good quarterback. You need a new quarterback. You need a new signal caller. And if you're the Bills, this 8th selection in the draft needs to be a quarterback. I don't think there's anything else it could be. And I don't know how many quarterbacks in this draft are actually any good. This isn't last year's draft where you had Robert Griffin III, you had Andrew Luck, you had Russell Wilson. There were picks to be made in that draft. No one really knew how good Russell Wilson was going to be. But again, there were quarterbacks to be selected in the draft last season. Brandon Weeden was selected in the first round. Ryan Tannehill was selected in the first round. There were first-round grade quarterbacks in the draft last season. This year, I'm not sure about this crop of quarterbacks. Again, if you're Buffalo, doesn't matter. Find one that suits your needs. Make him work. You can't go into next season with Ryan Fitzpatrick as your quarterback. And really, he's not that bad to the point where you need to exile him immediately, like how I feel about Mark Sanchez. But you're paying him a lot of money, and at this point, this experiment has gone on way too long. He's not the answer in Buffalo. The GM has already come out and said, hey, we need a new quarterback. And so it's no secret the Bills are looking for a quarterback. And I think that's what their target with this 8th selection in the draft will be. If they don't get it in the first round, I assume that the second round pick will be a quarterback. At some point in the first 2-3 rounds, they're going to select a quarterback, and that's probably going to be the guy that they're going to look to turn to moving forward. It may not be to start the season. Ryan Fitzpatrick might be your starter day one. But make no mistake about it, the Bills are looking to move forward and get a new quarterback in there and start anew. And that's the right thing to do. They need to figure out who the new quarterback for this team will be. In the near future, we need to figure that out here shortly because the Bills aren't going to win and they aren't going to go where they want to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick as your quarterback. Running back. CJ Spiller should be starting. I don't know why this is such a hard decision for the Bills. I don't know what Chan Gailey was doing, but CJ Spiller is a starting running back in this league. He's a dynamic running back in this league. I love CJ Spiller, and I think that CJ Spiller has the potential to be one of the best running backs in the National Football League. And for him to not be starting when Fred Jackson is healthy makes no sense to me. CJ Spiller, as of the end of this season, needs to be your starting running back. Pronto. I don't care if Fred Jackson's healthy. I don't care who's on the roster. CJ Spiller needs to be your main running back. And it's okay to split carries with Fred Jackson. CJ Spiller needs to have more touches than Fred Jackson. He needs to touch it in more capacity. I'm talking receiving. I'm talking about catching it out of the backfield. I'm talking about running it. I'm talking about any way you can get CJ Spiller the football, you get CJ Spiller the football. And I think that needs to be a point of emphasis next season. You spent a lot of money on free agents last offseason, did the Buffalo Bills. You paid a lot of money to Mario Williams. You paid a lot of money to Mark Anderson. These guys did not produce to the level of their contracts. Now, Mario Williams came on later on in the season. He started to play a lot better than he did early on in the season. And we all heard the excuse about the messed up hand and all that. I don't care. These guys are being paid a lot of money. And you expect them to live up to the pay of that contract. And so these guys have to be better moving forward. You can't spend money on free agents and have them not pan out. That's a surefire way to continue to be a 5-11, 6-10 football team. So these guys need to start playing football at the level that the Bills anticipated them playing when they gave them that contract. You look at the Bills, they're a young team. They're a very young football team. And with youth comes mistakes and inexperience. And so it was a learning curve. You had to know the Bills were going to give up plays defensively. When you've got Aaron Williams on one side at corner and then you've got a rookie and Stephon Gilmore on the other side, you're going to give up plays. And I thought that Stephon Gilmore was really good this season. I was impressed with him. At times he gave up plays. He's a rookie. It's going to happen. He's going to get beat. It's baptism by fire. They threw him out there and said, hey, young fella, you are a first-round, top 10 pick. Go out there and play for us. And so he's going to make mistakes, but he's going to make his share of plays. I like him. I like him a lot. And I think that the Bills have something on defense. They just need to start being more consistent on defense. The Bills have one of the most feared defensive lines in all the National Football League when they're healthy, when they're playing up to their standards. Kyle Williams is a beast. Marcel Darius is an animal. If Super Mario can get his act together on one side and Mark Anderson can get his act on the other side together, this could be one of the best front fours in all of football. And their linebacker corps needs work. Nick Barnett getting up there in age. There's really not a lot of youth that's any good on this team. They have a few draft picks that are starting to come along slowly, but the Bills need more talent at the linebacker position. If you're the Bills, Jarius Byrd, your all-pro safety, needs to be re-signed. There's nothing to talk about. He needs to be re-signed immediately. To me, that's one of your top priorities in the offseason. Re-sign Jarius Byrd. You don't let all-pro safeties walk away. You don't let them walk away. If you got to franchise them until you can work out a long-term deal, do so. But by no means, under no circumstances, does Jarius Byrd leave your facility a free agent. He needs to be a Buffalo Bill at all times. And so those are all things that I'm looking towards in the offseason. Getting a quarterback. Making sure CJ Spiller is your starting running back from day one. You guys need a number 2 receiver. The Bills, I've been saying this for so long. Ever since the days of James Hardy, the Bills have been looking for a number 1. Okay, you got Stevie Johnson. If you want to call him a number 1, fine. I'll give you that. You need a number 2 receiver. How much longer can you trot Donald Jones, TJ Graham? You had Derek Hagan at one point. How long can you keep sending out subpar 4s and receivers as twos on the field. Donald Jones is a project that you've been working on for about 2 or 3 seasons now. It's not going to work. Maybe Donald Jones is fine as a number 3 or a number 4. He's not a number 2. Stop it. Get a legit wide receiver, please. Get someone that can play out wide opposite Stevie Johnson, stretch this field a little bit, and open it up for guys like Chandler and David Nelson. This is getting a little ridiculous now, and it's been going on far too long. Get a number 2 receiver and quit trying to put a Band-Aid on something that needs surgery. You need a number 2 receiver. This has gone on long enough. Get a number 2 receiver and then come talk to me. The Bills were a bad team in 2012. 6-10 says it all. Negative 13 turnover differential will do that to you every single time. Again, with a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick as your quarterback, that's what you're going to get. That's what I expect you to be right around. Negative 13, that sounds right about where the Bills are going to be with a quarterback like Ryan Fitzpatrick. And so I think that it's imperative that you get a new quarterback. And Doug Marrone needs to give this team direction. As the new head coach, I think this is a very young team. I've already stated that. And I think that they're a young team with some talent that needs direction. Talent without direction equals a bad football team. And so the Buffalo Bills can be as talented as they want. But without direction, you have nothing. You're just going to wander aimlessly through the season and end up 6-10, 5-11. I think Doug Marrone's biggest challenge is to really take this energy, this young energy from this Buffalo Bills team and harness it into winning competitive football every single week. That's what the Bills lack, consistency. The Bills will go to Foxborough and have a shootout with the Patriots one week. It'll be a 38-41 game. Patriots always find a way to beat them, but they won't back down. They won't relent. They'll go in and they'll look like a team that can play with anyone. And then the very next week, after playing so well at Foxborough against the Patriots, they'll go and they'll be absolutely dismantled by a Dolphins team, by a San Francisco 49ers team, by an Arizona Cardinals team, by a Tennessee Titans team. It'll just come out of left field. You'll say to yourself, what just happened? They just scored 38 points last week. How is it that they go against San Francisco, or they go against Miami, or they go against Arizona, or they go against Tennessee, and they can only muster 13 points? What's up with that? That's the Buffalo Bills for you. Week in, week out, you don't know what to expect. And so Doug Marrone is going to have to take this young talent, this young energy, and focus it and harness it into winning competitive football every single week. The consistency needs to be there for this Buffalo Bills team. And that's one of my biggest gripes with them is the lack of consistency. One week you're solid, the next week you're one of the worst teams in the league, and you don't know which team is going to show up. It's impossible to really gauge it from week to week with the Buffalo Bills. Doesn't matter if they're home or they're away or they're in Canada. You don't know what you're going to get. And Doug Marrone's first duty as Buffalo Bills head coach is to get this team to buy into whatever it is he's selling to them. And I think it'll be important for him to really get his team on the same page with him immediately. What do you do with Leotis McKelvin if you're the Bills? This is it. Contract is up. I thought he was dynamic in the special teams game. He hasn't been what you wanted him to be as a corner. You've already come to grips with that. You've already come to the realization that he'll never be the corner that you want him to be. But he's a great return man. What do? Do you cut him loose and let him find work somewhere else? Or do you say, hey, we respect what you've done for us in the return game. You're a solid corner that we can rely on in a pinch. Come on back. What do you do with Leotis McKelvin? I think that'll be interesting to see. I think that in the offseason free agency, you need to address some of your issues on the offensive line. You need to address some more talent on the defensive side of the football. I don't think it would hurt you to get a few linebackers, get a better safety opposite of Jarius Byrd. I think that you could go in several different directions for that. You could go through the draft. You could go through free agency. Who knows? You could solve it via trade. I don't know what the Bills have in store, but first things first. draft, free agency, whatever you're going to do, quarterback. 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 That needs to be your number one goal, is getting a quarterback to come in and maybe not even start day one, but to know that we have a guy that we think can be the future for us on our roster. I think is the most important thing that the Bills need to address in the 2013 offseason. So that's going to do it for the Buffalo Bills. This is a team that I think it's going to take some time for them to get to where I think they should be, because they don't have a quarterback yet. And it's going to take time for that quarterback to get in, get his feet wet, and start to really acclimate himself to the NFL game. I'm talking about a rookie here, and I think the Bills are going to draft someone, but they could be a team that thinks that, hey, we're just a quarterback away from really making a go of it in the AFC East, and they might go get a veteran quarterback. They might get someone that's going to be a free agent. They might trade for someone. There's a couple of quarterbacks that are just sitting on benches around this league that are just rotting, like a Alex Smith, like a Matt Flynn, that teams might offer up a deal for. And so maybe the Bills are one of those teams. I don't think that if you're the Buffalo Bills, you need to go that route. You need to go the young route. You need to go the cheap route. You need to go find you a young quarterback that you can say will be the face of our franchise for the next decade. That's what you should be looking at. And so even if that guy isn't there, you don't have to go reaching. There's going to be something at 8 that the Buffalo Bills could use on their roster. Trust me, the Bills are not good enough where a player at 8 won't help them right away. So whatever is there, you take it. But if you're the Bills, you want that number 8 pick to be a quarterback, if at all possible. Thank you for joining me on this edition of the Buffalo Bills Lab Follow-Up. Tomorrow, we'll be talking New York Jets, another team from the AFC East that struggled this season mightily. And so come back tomorrow when this series continues as we talk New York Jets football, as they are the 9th pick in the draft, and we're going in draft order. And so we will be talking Jets football tomorrow. See you then. Have a good one.
Buffalo Bills.